Go on, picture the underworld. What do you see? Fire, brimstone, a horned red-skinned devil gleefully tormenting the damned. For most of us, that's the image that springs to mind. A portrait of terror painted so vividly it stained our collective consciousness. But what if I told you that image is a lie? It's a distortion, a hand-me-down horror story that couldn't be further from the original. The true underworlds of our ancestors weren't pits of despair. They were realms of cosmic balance, profound wisdom, and dare I say, even beauty. The stories we've been told about the afterlife have been filtered through a very specific good versus evil lens. But the ancient Greeks and Egyptians didn't really see the world in such stark black and white. Their ideas about life, death, and what comes next were woven with nuance, reflecting a deep respect for natural cycles and the intricate balance of the cosmos. So today, we're not descending into terror. We're retaking a tranquil trip to two of the most misunderstood realms in all of mythology. The Greek Hades and the Egyptian Duat. We're going to peel back the layers of fear to reveal the serene secrets the gods kept hidden. Forget the horror stories. This is a journey to discover the quiet beauty and cosmic justice of the afterlife, as it was truly meant to be seen, not as a punishment, but as a peaceful, essential part of existence itself. Let's start in ancient Greece, in a realm whose very name has become a synonym for hell. But the god Hades was not the Greek version of Satan. He wasn't a tempter, a source of evil, or even a punisher. He was, simply, a king. And his kingdom wasn't one of fire, but of shadow and mist. The other gods didn't avoid him because he was evil. They avoided him because he represented the uncomfortable, yet inevitable reality of death. See, Hades kind of drew the short straw. After he and his brothers, Zeus and Poseidon, defeated the Titans, they divvied up the cosmos. Zeus got the sky, Poseidon got the sea, and Hades was left with the underworld. It was the job nobody wanted, but he took his duties seriously. His role wasn't to cause death, that was the job of a different god, Thanatos, but to preside over the souls of the dead. He was the ultimate enforcer of cosmic law. The living stay in the world of light, and the dead stay in the world of shadow. He was often called the Unseen One and, tellingly, the Zeus of the lower world. Titles that speak to his power as a just, if grim, ruler. And here's a surprise. He was also the god of wealth. All the precious metals and minerals hidden in the ground were part of his kingdom, linking him not to evil, but to the vast, hidden treasures of the earth. And of course, no king is complete without his queen. The story of Persephone is usually told as a brutal abduction, but her role is far more complex. She's the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, and her story is the very reason we have seasons. When Persephone descends to the underworld to be with her husband for part of the year, her mother grieves, and the world goes cold and fallow in autumn and winter. When she returns to the surface, Demeter rejoices, and the world explodes with a life of spring and summer. Persephone isn't just a captive, she's a bridge between two worlds. She is both the maiden of spring and the dread queen of the dead, a venerable figure in her own right. While she was certainly revered as Hades' queen, her power was unique, connecting the realms of life and death. Her symbols tell the whole story. The pomegranate binds her to the underworld, but seeds and flowers connect her to fertility. Her story isn't about darkness, it's about the inseparable cyclical dance between life and death. She is the living embodiment of the truth that for life to be reborn, it must first go dormant. So, what was the trip to this kingdom actually like? When a soul left the world of the living, it was guided by Hermes, the messenger god, to the banks of the shadowy river Styx. There, the soul would meet Charon, the silent ancient ferryman whose job was to carry them across. The passage wasn't free. The dead had to pay with a coin, an obol placed in their mouth during burial. This wasn't greed. It was a sacred rite, a sign that the family had performed the proper rituals. According to some tellings, those who couldn't pay were left to wander the banks for 100 years, shades lost between worlds. It was a journey not of terror, but of solemn, quiet transition. Once across, the soul faced Cerberus, the famous three-headed dog, but Cerberus wasn't there to attack new arrivals. His job was the opposite, to keep the dead from leaving. He was a guard dog for the natural order. Beyond the gates, the soul arrived in a realm with distinct regions, sorted by a profound sense of justice. First were the Asphodel Meadows, the destination for the vast majority of souls, those who had lived lives that were neither remarkably good nor terribly evil. It was a neutral, grey-lit place covered in pale, scentless flowers. Homer described the souls here as witless shades, flitting about after having their memories washed away by the river Lethe. It wasn't punishment, nor was it a reward. It was a melancholy, quiet, and peaceful eternity. For a heroic few, a much brighter fate awaited in Elysium, the Greek paradise. This was reserved for the virtuous and those favored by the gods. Homer described it as a land of perfect happiness, with gentle breezes and no bad weather, where souls could enjoy their favorite pastimes forever. It was the ultimate reward for a righteous life. Finally, there was Tartarus. This is the place that most resembles our modern idea of hell, a deep dark pit of eternal punishment. But it wasn't for just any sinner. In most classical myths, Tartarus was a divine prison for those who had committed heinous crimes against the gods themselves. Figures like Tantalus, forever reaching for food and water, or Sisyphus, forever pushing his boulder. These weren't just bad people. They were mythological figures who tried to cheat the gods. While some later traditions opened it up to more wicked souls, it was originally for the greatest enemies of the divine order. Hades' underworld, then, was a realm meticulously designed for cosmic balance. The stern justice of its king, the cyclical nature of its queen, and the careful sorting of souls all point to a deep reverence for order. It's a place of finality, yes, but also one of serene, unwavering justice. Alright, let's swap our togas for linen and travel to the sun-drenched sands of Egypt, to an underworld that was less of a place and more of a journey. The Duat pop culture has painted the Egyptian afterlife with a broad brush of curses and dread, but the ancient Egyptians weren't obsessed with death. They were obsessed with life, and they believed it could continue forever if you took the right steps. The Duat wasn't an end. It was a perilous, transformative road to eternal paradise. The king of this realm was Osiris, a god whose story is one of history's greatest tales of hope. Osiris was a beloved earthly king murdered by his jealous brother, Set. His wife, the powerful magician Isis, reassembled his body and brought him back just long enough to conceive their son, Horus. Osiris couldn't return to the world of the living, so he became the just judge and ruler of the underworld. His story isn't a tragedy, it's a triumph. He's the ultimate symbol of resurrection, a promise that death isn't final. That's why he's often depicted with green skin, not for decay, but for new growth and renewal. The Duat itself was a mystical landscape that mirrored the real world, but was filled with supernatural dangers, like lakes of fire and walls of iron. To get through it, the deceased were buried with their own personal guide, the Book of the Dead. This wasn't a single book, but a collection of spells, incantations, and ritual instructions. Think of it as a spiritual guidebook to help the soul overcome the trials ahead. The whole journey was structured around the 12 hours of the night, because it was linked to the voyage of the sun god Ra. Every evening at sunset, Ra would begin his own dangerous trip through the Duat on his solar boat. As he passed through each of the 12 regions of the Duat, his light brought temporary life and joy to the dead. His greatest enemy was Apep, a serpent of pure chaos who tried every night to swallow the sun boat and plunge the universe into darkness. Ra's victory, ensuring the sun would rise again, made the Duat an essential engine of cosmic order. The journey of the soul was a parallel to the sun god's own cycle of rebirth for the human soul. The final test was the weighing of the heart. This is one of the most beautiful concepts in religious history. In the Hall of Two Truths, the god Anubis would place the deceased's heart on one side of a golden scale. On the other was the single white feather of Mat, the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic harmony. The soul would then make a negative confession, listing the sins they had not committed. If the heart was heavy with sin, it would outweigh the feather. The heart would then be devoured by a terrifying creature named Ammit, and the soul would face complete annihilation, not eternal torture, just the end of existence. But if the person had lived a life of truth and harmony, their heart would be as light as the feather. Thoth, the god of wisdom, would record the verdict, and Horus would lead the soul to be welcomed by Osiris into the field of reeds. This was paradise, an idealized version of the Egypt they had known and loved. It was a lush, fertile land where they could be with their loved ones and enjoy the pleasures of life forever, without pain or hardship. They were even buried with little figurines called shabdis to do all the work for them. The journey through the Duat shows a profoundly optimistic worldview. It presents death as a challenging but hopeful path to eternal life, all built on personal responsibility. It was a promise that if you lived a good life, a life of truth and balance, an eternity of peace was waiting for you. If you enjoyed this trip into the serene side of mythology, be sure to subscribe and join our community. We dig into these ancient stories every week to uncover the wisdom hidden just beneath the surface. Let us know in the comments which mythological realm you'd like us to explore next. For too long, our picture of the underworld has been clouded by horror stories. We've replaced the rich philosophies of our ancestors with simple, terrifying cartoons. But the realms of Hades and the Duat weren't hells. They were intricate systems of cosmic justice, mirrors of the natural world, and roadmaps for the soul. The Greek Hades was a kingdom of solemn order, where everyone found their rightful place. The Egyptian Duat was a transformative journey that echoed the sun's own rebirth, and promised a paradise earned through a life of integrity. These ancient cultures didn't just fear death, they sought to understand it as part of a grand, beautiful cycle. They found peace in balance and hope in rebirth. They are not tales of terror, they are tranquil testaments to the enduring human search for meaning in the great mystery of what lies beyond.